Welcome back, Mando.
Ho! Greetings, Bucketheads. Mavar Tagar. Welcome to our 320th new bass-smelling episode of Mandovision. I am your host, Nargai Tom, and thank you so much for checking out our small, independent Star Wars podcast. We're so glad you're here. Reach out to us on the socials, Mando_Vision, Twitter /X, and Instagram. Mandovision at Blue Sky, and you can email the show, mandovisiontom@gmail.com. Like, subscribe, follow, and share this show with all the Mandalorians in your covert. All right, Bucketheads, we are back for another exciting installment in our Star Wars Rebels rewatch series as we rocket towards the conclusion of Season 2 of Rebels, and a big turning point for our heroes. And this finale is coming up just days away for us, I suppose. But we have one episode to get to first, episode 20, and it's an episode with a weird plot and kind of a misleading name. At least I think so. I don't know. I'm not real big on the name of this episode, the title of this episode. I don't think it hits quite the way they want it to, but that's neither here nor there, friends. So we are going to get into it. We're going to talk about this episode. There's a lot of weird things in this episode. So let's go ahead and talk about a couple of these things. All right. So we are at the new base on the planet that was found by AP5, and Chaopper, Chopper's new friend AP5 from the previous episode. So we are on a planet called Atalon. That's where we're gonna set up this new base. It's a rock world, and it's supposed to be devoid of life. And our heroes are about to find out that's not so much the case. That there is actually life on the planet, and it's fairly hostile. And that comes in the form of the Krykna. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Now, the Krykna, they're a part of that lore, right, that I was just alluding to. They were originally, they may look familiar to you. If you're an old head Star Wars fan like myself, you may notice the design of the Krykna to be very, very similar to that of the knobby-kneed, white spiders that Ralph McQuarrie designed in the concept art for Dagobah back for Empire Strikes Back. So they were part of the old expanded universe canon. You can find them on Dagobah and some of the old material whenever Luke goes back to Dagobah. But now they're sort of being recanonized here as the Krykna on this world. They are a little bit different in the sense that instead of being an 8-legged arachnid, they are 6 legs. Allegedly, that's because they are easier to animate. There's less to do, right? All right, makes sense to me. Another piece of oddities in this episode is like the little snail creatures on the planet. So they are called Dogma in the canon, but in the episode itself, Zeb often refers to them as Bogan, which is not cool. Because Bogan, in Lucas's old treatments, his early drafts of Star Wars, Bogan was the dark side of the Force. And it's interesting that Zeb throws that word around because, again, we go back a couple episodes where we meet up with his people, and they refer to Ashla, right, which is what George Lucas referred to as the light side of the Force in these early drafts. So that's some interesting stuff. We also have lightsabers in training mode, which I thought was pretty cool. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we get into the episode. And I think that's probably some of our more obscure references to sort of talk about. We get the appearance of Convor in this episode, which will herald the coming of Morai, who we have talked about before on the show whenever it comes to Ahsoka time. Morai will get a little bit more face time, a little more talkie time with Morai next week. So we see Convor flying around on this planet, and I think it's to sort of herald what is to come next week, particularly the way the episode ends on. Well, we'll talk about the ending of the episode. We'll get there, I promise. All right, so those are sort of our oddities. That is sort of where we are at with the planet and all this information that we want to get out there for you guys. So I think we'll go ahead and get into the episode particulars. Why not? Let's just dive right in, all right? This is Star Wars Rebels, Season 2, Episode 20, The Mystery of Chaopper Base. Original air date was March 23rd, 2016. And again, I sort of find that title to be somewhat misleading because I don't think there's any point in the episode they were actually referred to it as Chaopper Base. But that's okay. I mean, Chaopper helped with its finding, right? So, I guess it's only natural that it could be called that. I prefer the plot description on Star Wars Rebels versus what I found on some other sites, and which is nice and easy. The Rebels scout their base and discover predators. So we're gonna go with that plot for the episode. Our primary cast for this week: many familiar faces and voices. Taylor Gray as Ezra Bridger, Vanessa Marshall as Harrison Dula, Freddie Prinze Jr. as Kanan Jarrus, Tia Sakar as Sabine Wren, Steve Blum as Zeb Ariello, Dave Filoni as Chopper, Ashley Eckstein's back as Ahsoka, Steven Stanton returns as AP5, Keon Young is Commander Sato in a very small part today, and D. Bradley Baker, of course, is the voice of Rex. Our episode is written by Stephen Melching, directed by Bosco NG. We've already gotten the plot out of the way, so that means it is time. Strap on your buckets. Let's go.
Get out of here. We'll hold them off.
You're going to have to relocate the covert.
This is the way.
This is the way.
So we have our plot out there about the rebels scouting their new base and taking a deep whiff of that new base smell. And of course, finding out there are predators on the planet. That's our plot, but that's not really what this episode is about. We open up and we see, as the episode opens up, Kanan, Ezra engaged in heavy lightsaber training. They are preparing to go after the Inquisitors. They are going to step away from the rebels, from their friends, from their family, to deal with the Inquisitor threat head on. So they are engaged in some pretty serious lightsaber training. Again, lightsabers in training mode, so they're a little bit dimmer. They won't sever limbs, but they will sting if they make contact with you. So I think that's a neat thing to see. I don't think that's something that we actively engage in enough with like the different modalities of a lightsaber sometimes. So fun to see them doing that. Also fun to see sort of the level of intensity that their training has gotten to, and the skills that Ezra has acquired as he's progressed from when we first met him and he first picked up a lightsaber. So all those things I think are really, really strong, and Kanan's convinced they're doing the right thing by stepping away to take care of this threat more directly. But he's not thinking about what it means, what their absence will mean for the family unit they've constructed with each other, with themselves, with the group. And Hera seems to be the one taking it the hardest because she agrees with what he's doing, but it's still this hole will be in their family. It's no one knows for how long they'll be gone. No one knows for how long they'll be away. But they're going to go and deal with this, and no one knows what will happen to him next. It's something that weighs heavily on Hera, but Kanan just sees the benefits of them going to take care of this, to get away, to take the pressure off the rebellion by them being there. But he's not looking at the absence that their being gone will create. So that's really what this episode's about, and sort of processing how the dynamic of the group is going to change. And at various points in this episode, Hera is the one who, was like, hey, no, Kanan and Ezra go off together because we need to get used to being here on our own without Jedi around. So that's really what this one's about. This is what it really gets into. And I think it's strong in that sense. But there are other elements of this episode that, that's sort of like the B plot of it. The sort of A plot with the creatures and all that stuff, it's not my favorite. And, you guys know how I roll. Like a lot of the quote-unquote fine episodes of Rebels, I tend to like more than other people because there are things that I kind of connect to more. This one, it just has some oddities to it. It's not Melching's finest script, in my opinion. And it mostly has to do with the spiders because like things just sort of happen in the episode. We're establishing in the space, everyone looks happy. Everyone seems content. There's different teams of Phoenix Squadron out there setting up sensor arrays around the planet. And we find Lieutenant Dicer out on her own. She sets up her sensor array and then is taken out by the Kryknas, right? And okay, cool. All right, so that's our mystery, right? Like, what happened to Dicer? Where is she at? What's going on here? So, of course, when all the other pilots are back at the base and Dicer's the one who hasn't checked in, it's time to go check on Dicer. At least Sabine's going to go check on Dicer with Rex, all right? Meanwhile, we get a nice quiet moment with Ezra and Zeb as they prepare to part ways. And it's a nice quiet moment for like two characters who are basically like have become brothers. You know, Zeb, the older brother, and sort of, you know, making jokes and keeping it light the way brothers often would, instead of taking things seriously and getting super emotional about things. So I like that moment between the two. I like Zeb sort of joking around that by the time Ezra and Kanan come back, they'll probably have defeated the Empire by then. You know, stuff like that. It's just a fun, nice, quiet scene for these two characters that just you know, despite the level of bickering and stuff back and forth, are essentially siblings. It's really nice. Meanwhile, Sabine and Rex, they find Dicer's ship, the A-Wing, and they find Dicer's helmet, but no trace of Dicer anywhere, no blood anywhere, no bones anywhere, just her helmet, clean, nothing weird, right? Like nothing going on here, right? And that's when the Krykna make their appearance, right? We got the little snail guys running all around all over the place, but the Krykna come out of the ground. They are heavily armored. They take a blaster bolt like a champion, not only from like handguns, from hand blasters, but also from the Ghost itself. It's pretty intense armor these guys have, and eventually we find out that if you shoot them in the eye, you kill them. But for some reason, as their numbers grow and Sabine and Rex are sort of boxed in and pinned down and having trouble getting away, the Krykna capture Rex and take him away. Why? I don't know. And maybe this is how they play with their food. But at this point, there's also, again, I'm going to refer to them as like an arachnid kind of creature, even though I know they don't have the 8 legs. But they just pick him up and carry him. They don't shoot him full of webbing and wrap him up or any of that stuff that we maybe would expect from more arachnid-like creatures. So, okay, great. Well, Sabine calls for help. They get help. Help's on the way. Everyone's here to investigate. We're going to go into some caves. And again, these are just caves. There's nothing spider-like about it. There's no webbing anywhere. So when webbing comes into play later in the episode, I found it very odd. I also find it very odd that, you know, Rex is bound up in the legs of one of the creatures, and like kind of like a prison. So like in my mind, I'm like, well, couldn't Dicer be in the same situation? But no, we never really talk about Dicer ever again. There's no search for Dicer. They just sort of assume she's been eaten. She could be in another chamber somewhere in a similar situation, just like held up by these spiders' legs. Now, obviously, I think it's probably unlikely that's the case, but to me, there wasn't sufficient evidence that Dicer was dead for them to just go off that assumption and not bother to look for it at all. So interesting choices in the episode. I think maybe done for the sake of expediency and to kind of get our plot and our action moving here as our characters are sort of forced into conflict with these predators. Another element of the episode that I did enjoy quite a bit is Zeb's dislike, his aversion to spider-like creatures. I forget exactly what he calls them, but anything with more than 2 legs seems to make him very, very uncomfortable, and I found that to be a very amusing element of the plot. And it's not. We sort of wrap things up. It's a little surprising that it takes them a minute to figure out that the sensor arrays are what was keeping the Krykna in check. But we get there, and it's a fun sequence with Ezra and Kanan kind of launching Sabine towards the sensor array so she can grab it and kind of use it as a weapon to repel the creatures so they can get away. Now, don't forget, this is also when the creatures, they've been trying to escape. They get back to the Ghost, and they find the Ghost webbed down to the surface. Again, this is the first time we're seeing the webbing of these creatures, which is like, well, that just kind of came out of nowhere, right? Like, you think you might see that around in the caves or something like that, or again, Rex webbed up on a wall somewhere, something like that. For whatever reason, they didn't go that route. So when the webbing shows up, I was just sort of like, well, I mean, it makes sense that these creatures would have that capability, but we hadn't seen it to this point, so it's a little odd. I also wish I knew why they were sort of so relentless in their pursuit of our heroes. Especially after enough of them get killed, you would think that maybe they would like maybe back off a little bit. But I mean, they're just hostile. They're just aggressive. I guess that's the sort of the mentality that we have to learn to live with for the episode. They know how to kind of the rebels have sort of built this fenced off area now to protect their new base from the creatures. And Ezra, not for lack of trying, has tried to connect to the creatures, and he can't. So he doesn't understand their motivations or their reasons either. So I guess in that sense, it's they're just keeping it vague for a reason. Ezra can't understand them. He can't convince them that they're not a threat. So the Krykna will continue to treat them as a threat. It's interesting. Again, I sort of think part of it was done for expediency's sake, because I don't remember if we go back to these creatures at all throughout the run of the series, but maybe I'm just forgetting something. So it's not until the end that Kanan is sort of forced to confront with Hera why she is sad, upset. The family dynamic of the group is changing with Ezra and Kanan going away. And that's been hard for her, and now Kanan has to understand and accept that, yes, he's doing what he thinks is best ultimately for the group, but it has consequences. There are repercussions. He's leaving his family, and their absence will be felt. And, it's not, he now has to comprehend that. He now has to understand that he's creating a void in a family. The family unit is not going to be the same. And what are the consequences of that? What are the repercussions of that? It's something I don't think he'd considered before, because he just thought that what he was doing was right. But now he knows he has to look at the other side of it too. So that's really what the episode focuses on. I think that's really the emotional core of the episode, and that's why I like the episode. The sort of A story with the creatures and the base that's called Chaopper Base, but even though they never really call it Chaopper Base, all that stuff's like it's there, it's fine. The action's good, I guess. It's always fun to see lightsabers killing giant creatures, so that's exciting. But it doesn't really hit for me like the way other episodes like this have. I found this one to be a tad clunky. So it is what it is, and it gets a seven buckets for me. It's not, like I said, it's not the winner that I would hope for, even though you guys know I like sort of like the more obscure, low-key episodes. This one doesn't really do it for me. It just sort of advances the story to a small degree, and I don't really get anything else out of it than that. Now, that being said, what's coming is important. We are heading right into the finale of the second season, and those are big-time episodes. So I think this is kind of like the lull before the rising of the tides, right? So it's okay. We're going to bounce back, because we all know how good the next two episodes are. So let's get ready for those. Let's buckle up, keep our helmets on, our buckets on, and we'll just march towards that. 7 buckets on this episode, and that's all I'm going to say about it. Let's buckle up for the next 2 episodes, because those are going to be gosh darn good. All right, Bucketheads. So let's wrap it up. Let's get out of here. We'll be back actually very, very soon. Don't forget, also dropping tomorrow, at least that's the plan, will be a bonus episode where I am planning to share my reaction, my response, my feelings after getting to see a screening of the new Superman movie tonight. I will keep it spoiler-free. I will do my best to make sure that nothing is ruined for anybody who plans on seeing it this weekend. But I'm very excited for the movie, and I'm very hopeful that I come out of that movie in a good spot, and I want to share my excitement and my enthusiasm for it with you guys. I am trying to temper my expectations, but I'm really, really looking forward to this movie. So, good times. Also on note, if you guys are following on the Insta, you'll be wanting to check out a post that I'm putting out in just a little bit, because I ventured up to the city of Los Angeles yesterday being Monday the 7th of July, and I made my way to a place that I've wanted to go for many, many years now. I made it to the Scum and Villainy Cantina that is themed in a very familiar fashion for Star Wars fans, and I had a delightful time. I really enjoyed myself there. The whole venue, the ambiance, the atmosphere, all of it was very, very enjoyable. I had a nice time. I had a blast. If you are in the Los Angeles area, if you're going out there this summer to visit, check this place out. I'll be posting my pictures from there soon. I had an absolute hoot there. Now that being said, I still haven't gone to Batu. I have not been down to Disneyland or up to Disneyland. So, I haven't had that experience yet. But this one in LA, a little bit more low key than going to Disneyland, which I appreciate, which I respect. But I had an absolute blast. And towards the end of the night, I had a random encounter with Jack Black. That was super weird. I just said hello, and he said hello back, and it was like, I guess this is just LA. You just hang around long enough and you see a celebrity walk by. It was super weird. But hey, Jack Black just out walking the streets of LA in the middle of the night. Awesome times. All right, friends. I think that's going to wrap up our show. A reminder, again, follow me on the socials. It's Mando_Vision on the Insta. Also on Twitter/X. You'll see those pictures posted. And yeah, email the show, mandovisiontom@gmail.com. This is the Mandovision Podcast, and I am your host, Narguy Tom. Thank you for all your kindness and support over the years. Supporting the small independent Star Wars shows like us truly means a lot to me. Thank you. Make sure you're liking, subscribing, following, and sharing the show with all the Mandalorians in your covert. If you're on the Apple Podcast, sweet 5-star reviews. They help us out a ton. Make sure we don't get lost in the intergalactic shuffle. And that's it, my friends. All right, so I'll be back to talk about Superman unless I absolutely hate it, and then you will not hear from me. We will just move on with our lives, and we'll check back in with each other next week. But go out there, be great Star Wars fans, kind, supportive, respectful, even if you disagree with the person you're talking to. It's okay. Discourse, a nice back and forth, but keep it positive, keep it respectful. That's all we want to do. All right, Bucketheads. Remember, this podcast, it can only end one way. This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way. This is the way.
Bounty hunting is a complicated profession.